Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight for another Refugee Matters live series, a space where refugees and asylees are able to connect and highlight our stories. My name is Kaya Bashir, and I am really, really excited about moderating this special panel tonight. Historically, the United States has had a rich history of being humanitarian leader in the global community, and of welcoming refugees to rebuild their lives here with dignity and safety. Since its inception 41 years ago, the U.S. Refugee Resettlement Program has resettled more than 3 million refugees. This is a testament to the fact that refugees are integral to our nation, culture, and economic fabric as business owners, workers, faith leaders, teachers, elected officials, artists, community builders. During this unique year of crisis, refugees have also served as frontline workers, with over 175,000 working in the healthcare field and in the food supply chain. This special night, to honor refugees and asylees in our communities, we have organized Restoring Welcome Refugee Matters live series, leading up to our big day, World Refugee Day, which is going to happen on June 20th, 2021. So please, if you're watching this, mark your calendars, because this is where refugees and asylum leaders from diverse range of populations will share their history and lived experiences here. Our series sessions will actually air every Wednesday at this time, which is around 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And then the series will be dedicated specifically to uplifting the voices of the individuals who are often unheard, including asylees and asylum seekers, LGBTQ refugees, unaccompanied minors, Black refugees, stateless persons, and Asian Pacific Islander refugees. On the year of the 70th anniversary of the Refugee Convention, we invite all of you guys to join us and share their stories and find out how you can support the U.S. in restoring welcome across the nation during World Refugee Day in 2021. This month is, of course, May, and also an opportunity to celebrate the Asian Pacific American heritage and pay tribute to the generation of AAPI communities who have enriched American history. Therefore, it's only right that our first refugee series is uplifting the API refugees, and I'm so honored tonight to present to you two powerhouses, house leaders that will share their experiences as organizers and how we at large can uplift and support the AAPI communities. So, without further ado, I will have two Refugee Congress delegates from Colorado and Virginia, Vương-Sandoval and Myra Dahgaypaw, introduce themselves, and then I promise promise you, after this panel, you'll see why I think they should both not only be in this conversation with me, but instead of working at in Congress and White House, respectively. So a little bit about Na. Her family fled homeland due to the Vietnam War and became refugees. And then Myra is a Refugee Congress delegate from Virginia. She's a caring human rights activist from the Karen State. She was an internally displaced person for nearly 12 years and a refugee for 17 years. So I don't want to speak much about them. I'll let them introduce themselves. But yeah, I'll kick it off to you, Myra, and just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do. And thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Yes, certainly. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to all the organizers and the Refugee Congress for giving us this platform. It is a very good opportunity to speak out on behalf of the refugee communities across the country. So yes, my name is Myra Dahgaypaw. I am now heading or directing a small organization called the U.S. Campaign for Burma, an organization that we're trying to raise the awareness about the situation of the people of Burma on the ground, especially the ethnic and religious minorities, and because they're still suffering at the hands of the Burmese military regime, and their voices need to be heard. But also at the same time, I'm also working with the people, the Burmese diaspora in the U.S., where we're trying to also empower each other in order to learn about what advocacy means and how do we do it and why it is so important to do advocacy. Because when we have the voice to speak out on behalf of the people on the ground, we can also speak out on behalf of the people in our community here in the US to our government officials, which they have come a long way. They've learned and they're growing together. They've been empowered. So that is something that I really love to see. But anyway, myself, I had to flee for the Burmese military troops since I was a child. There were times when I didn't get to eat. My family, especially the older people, while I had a feast of white rice so that I can be quiet and not crying, the older people in my family didn't get to it. My villages were burned down by the Burmese troops, and I had to flee from village to village to the point where finally I reached to the Thailand border, had to cross over to Thailand side in the early January of 1995. That's when I officially became a refugee. And life in the refugee camp was very tough. Living behind the barbed wire, that's where there was a little bit of safety, but there was no rights to education or to health or to work or to build up our livelihood in Thailand. And that is why finally there was the opportunity to resettle to the US, and that's why I ended up in the US, which is a country of opportunity, but at the same time there's a lot of stumbling blocks, and that is why the refugee voices is very important to be raised, and that's where I'm going to stop.
Thank you, Myra. Go ahead, Van.
Go ahead. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm now Vương-Sandoval. I'm so happy to be here with Kyle, Myra, all of our leaders, all of the folks who hosted the event. There's way too many, but you could see at the bottom all of the amazing organizations that helped make today possible and this entire series possible. And I want to thank those who are logged in right now and tuning in to have this meaningful dialogue that we're going to have this evening. So just a bit about me. As Kyle mentioned, I'm a Vietnamese refugee, and my family and I had fled because of the Vietnam War. But most important is what has happened since then. My roles in advocacy vary in different capacities. Of course, being the Refugee Congress delegate for Colorado, I also serve in other capacities as a founding member and public speaker for the Colorado Refugee Speakers Bureau. I also serve on the board of directors for Lutheran Family Services Rocky Mountains as the vice chair for program services, and am the first refugee to serve on their board of directors, as well as a Noble Ambassador for Christina Noble Children's Foundation, among other organizations that I serve for. But overall, how I see my role is serving communities that I care about, serving issues that I care about, because it's so important right now to ensure that not only our voices are heard, but that our concerns and the things that are impacting our community are being amplified and people are acting on these concerns. And so in those capacities, I try to bring forth not only the issues, but our perspectives as refugees, as immigrants, as asylum seekers, as those who are in the community who know what it's like to go through these experiences, in hopes that change will happen in however format that will look, whether in a form of legislation, through law changes, or even on a very basic level of changing hearts and minds so that we can bring compassion back into spaces that have been severely lacking in these environments.
Yeah, I mean, one point that I may not have mentioned is, this is a space for refugees to highlight their experiences, and your stories are both very, very powerful, and and I really commend you guys for both what you guys are continuing to do, which is amplifying not only your experiences but also continuing to advocate for your communities, and really want to extend my respect that way. I have, along those same points, historically. And most recently, in the midst of the global pandemic, AAPI communities have been targeted and marginalized for their identities. So really curious, as leaders in your community, how do you both navigate the different identities within the AAPI community while also working to highlight the anti-Asian racism? And maybe now I'll pass it off to you, mainly because I had an opportunity to watch your powerful TED Talk titled Assimilation is Colonization. And I haven't watched a 13-minute clip that are related to so much, so please help us understand that and dispel some of those misconceptions that you addressed in there. And I'll pass it off to you now.
Kyle, thank you so much, one, for recognizing the issues that are directly impacting our community as the Asian community. But also, I want to thank you for taking time to watch my TEDx talk. And I was hoping that it would resonate for communities of color, refugees, immigrants, asylees, and of course, for those who aren't part of our communities, to understand our struggles through our lens and what that means to have to not only navigate, but trying to stay afloat with the issue after issue after issue and the barriers that we're confronted with. In response to your question with identifying and navigating through the different identities, what people, I think, don't realize is in Asia alone, there are 48 different countries that represent who we are. We are way beyond a monolith. We are way beyond being one identity and one culture, because even within our own countries, there are different dialects, there are different cultures. And so for me, as with everybody else, our identities are very layered. They're very complex and multidimensional, as they should be. I hope no one is one-dimensional. I hope that they give themselves that grace and that pride and that honor of recognizing the different components of what it is that makes them unique and special. But as far as what's going on in our community, it raised a lot of concern for the community at large and really brought to light some of the issues that we have been experiencing for centuries. It was just, now it's reached a boiling point where people can't ignore it anymore, because we're literally seeing events and incidences of not just harassment, not just violence, but we're witnessing murders of our community members daily, not even monthly, not even annually. It's happening daily to our most vulnerable communities, which are the elderly, who, of course, are going to be an easy target. But compound on top of that, some of them, English is not their first language as well. So, of course, that makes them even more vulnerable to being targeted for these incidences. But I think it's important at this time, in line with and in partnership with other communities of color, that we show solidarity. We show solidarity not only amongst our varied Asian community members, but to other people of color. And I saw that immediately right after the violence that has erupted, directly targeted at our Asian community, when we saw the Black community support us, when we saw Hispanic and Latino communities, we saw Indigenous communities supporting us. And that meant a lot to me, because I felt as though that could have been an easy time to be even more divisive. That could be another excuse for communities to not come together. And I'm so grateful that people saw the value in seeing our similarities and not our differences. And I'm so grateful that our communities across the nation rallied and came together and said, look, we're not that quiet community that you seem to think we are. We deserve rights. We deserve to be treated as human beings. And thank goodness, and we're grateful that you're standing right next to us in this fight. Thank you.
Yeah, powerful. Myra, did you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I just wanted to, I totally agree with Na. I think, I mean, for the time I've been here for over 10 years, I see the progress in terms of how do we become unified in supporting each other and speaking up for each other before and now. The difference for me is quite a bit. A lot of times, yesterday we talked about everyone who has little eyes, we all are perceived as Chinese. So the first glance people see us, they will call us Chinese. And I sometimes get to the point where I was like, you literally cannot tell the difference. The reason why I'm bringing this up is just to give the idea of how hard it is for me to make sure that people know who I am, but I'm not Chinese. But at the same time, it's making it so hard for another person who has never seen the difference between the Asians to identify who looks like what. And so, and a lot of times we had to take, let's say, the discrimination from different people in different ways. But it seems as though now we're coming much closer where we start knowing each other somewhat better. But of course, I mean, when I say I'm Korean, a lot of people still start off with, oh, you say you're Korean. And I have to be like, no, I am Karen from Burma, not Korean. So those kind of things, we still have to work on it. But I'm happy to see that we have many communities that comes to support the Burmese diaspora, for instance. I'm not talking just as a Burmese, but I'm just giving an example because I'm a Burmese person. For instance, very recently, very soon after the Atlanta incident, we also have another murder in our community. And I felt it's so painful that before I heard about it, I read about it. Now it came to our door. And I was just like, so nobody feel bad about us. Nobody cares. But at the same time, we also have the community that comes out there supportive. And that leads me to what Naz said, is that now a lot of people seem to come together. We support each other in solidarity. And I think that is something that is very beautiful, but still we have to go a long way and we still have to struggle, and we just have to do it together.
Hey, I think together is the perfect way to phrase all of that together. So yeah, let me tell you, your diversity, our diversity, and all that we bring to this country is very beautiful. And thank you again for continuing to leverage your networks and your spaces and speaking up for not only your communities but for human rights at large and standing in solidarity with everybody. So yeah, I appreciate that. And maybe Myra, I'll pass it back off to you. As refugee leaders, many times we are invited to speak and share our stories in many spaces, and sometimes it feels like that's it. So refugees are rarely at the table to plan, discuss, or finalize decisions that impact our communities. Do you feel the same? And if so, please expand on the importance of representation, not only at the national level but locally, and many of these organizing levels, especially for AAPI communities.
Thank you. I guess the first thing I wanted to point out is, who would understand the pain of the refugees more than the refugees who have to live through this life? And that is why our voices is so important at many different levels, because our representation at our official offices is very important. So just giving you the example, back in September 2019. So Donald Trump signed an executive order requiring a federal government to obtain agreement from the state and local government before settling refugees in their jurisdictions. And then, of course, a few months after that, you start seeing states like North Dakota, Minnesota, Virginia, Colorado, and many other states start thinking if they have to agree to bring in on the refugee resettlement. Well, I don't really mind. I don't really care what the result is, but one way or the other, regardless of the outcome, his executive order highlights the importance of the local policymakers throughout the resettlement process. And this is why the refugee voices on the ground in the states and the local level is very important to the decision makers. Our inputs, our suggestions will make a difference for not just us who are living in this country already, but also for those who will be coming. Those who will be coming need our help because they need a safer place to live. They are not safe over there where they live, and that is why they have to come in here. But here, here is a blockage, our responsibility to get out there to making sure that our officials understand what's going on, and especially the local level, they have lesser I don't know, at some places I've seen is that they have lesser connection with the international issues that leads to refugees resettlement. So I guess my point is that our voice is important in a sense to educate our local policymakers, which also will lead to the state and the national level.
Beautiful, well said. Exactly. It's those that have dealt with this experience should be the ones making decisions about their experiences in their community. So, and Nad, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Kyle, thanks so much. And Myra, I really appreciated what you said because I echo your sentiments on the importance of representation. But I think that's just the first step. Because as we've seen people who look just like us or very similar to us who only go in there for performative measures. And they go in there as a feather in their cap, or they go in there with empty promises that they never follow through. So we need to demand more from people who look like us because they have no excuse. They have gone through this experience. They know what it's like to be the underrepresented group. And therefore, not only do they understand, they should do better, right? They should do better than the people who don't understand. But as far as what, in reference to what you were saying, Kyle, with why is it so important? Not only do we know it better than someone who has not gone through this experience, but I think we have a responsibility to ensure that we're being represented in the most authentic way. Because there is so much information out there, and the people who need to hear these facts the most are the ones who are not hearing it. Those are the decision makers, the lawmakers, people in leadership roles who can't even tell you the difference between a refugee, an immigrant, an asylum seeker, or a stateless person. And that's embarrassing because they're making decisions that impact people's lives. And yet we're all grouped into one group. And not only is that a disservice, it's harmful. It's harmful because we can help all of these communities because, as you all know, we're all funded differently. It doesn't come from one entity. It doesn't come from one source of funding. And so to keep relaying this information because it's simplistic and it's digestible for the public and the community at large, because that's what they're used to hearing, is a disservice for all of us. We need to ensure that what we're saying, what we're presenting is as accurate as possible. And we need to demand more from our communities as well, not just for communities that don't look like us, but particularly for communities that look like us, because they're the ones going out there and presenting all of this data, all of these experiences. And if they're grouping all of these experiences into one, no one is going to benefit from it. In fact, it's going to cause a lot more detriment in the long run for people who identify as refugee, who identify as immigrant, asylum seeker, or a stateless person. No one ends up benefiting from it because they all see us as one. And if they don't like one, they're not going to like all. And so we want to ensure that everybody is presenting in the most humanitarian way, the most authentic way, and the most honest way.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I hope somebody from the administration is actually watching, because if they're not, they need to be watching this right now. But yeah, those are some very powerful words, and I appreciate you both for sharing that. And really curious, are there any, and maybe this could just be for both of you guys, is there any simple tools of advocacy that you both have discovered, and how it has helped you both empower and possibly engage and produce more Nas and Myras to this movement? It's Sometimes it feels like it's only a few of us that are doing this work, but for the many AAPI communities that are out there, or just many refugees that are out there, what are some tools that have worked for you guys to engage them in this advocacy work?
I would love to answer that question if that's okay. And I just want to tell the folks who are watching right now, can you give us a shout if you're from Colorado, if you're from Virginia, if you represent one of the organizations, just show us some love and give us a shout, and drop your questions in the comments if you don't mind. We'd love to hear from you. So Kyle, in response to your question with pointers and things that have helped us along the way, for me, it's to keep updated because it's an ever-changing topic and issue, as you know. It changes when we have a different presidential administration. It changes when there are certain movements going on in the United States. It changes when there are disparities that have risen. There are issues that amplify what's going on. So we have to keep updated on what's happening so that we can ensure that what we're presenting is relevant, useful, and that it actually connects with these communities that are trying to impact these issues as well. And the second advice I would give is be a good ally to other advocates. This is not a one-man show. No one can do this alone. So when you find other powerful and impactful leaders, ensure that you're working to support them as well. Ensure that you're supporting to work other groups as well, because I can guarantee you 10 out of 10 times, they have advocated for something very similar, if not the exact same issue that you have. And what a powerful way to combine your resources and amplify your voices for the same issue and the same cause. I feel as though sometimes we're so busy in our silos that we forget there are amazing, incredible leaders who are doing the same work that we can continue to learn from. I can't tell you how many times that we think we have something, we understand something, and someone brings another component to the table, and it just makes our work even more impactful and more powerful.
Adding on to that, I wanted to say that educating oneself, keeping oneself updated all the time is very important, but also at the same time, compassion, being compassionate with the issues of refugees is very important too, because you are one of us. Or another way I wanted to say is educate yourself about what advocacy means and how we do it and why we have to do it and the impact the advocacy make. Because if we wanted some change, we have to work for it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen by itself. That is why Nai and I, we are doing the work we are doing, and we love doing it because we know that it is going to impact many lives. It's not just for us. And that is why we need more people to come on board with us. Doing advocacy doesn't have an age, doesn't have education level. So you can do it anytime, wherever you are. The only thing you have to understand is doing advocacy is tedious. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to change the policy overnight, but it's going to happen with perseverance and persistence. So I just wanted to invite everyone who listened to us today, or everyone who will be watching this clip sometimes later or down the road, join us in this fight, and we will make a difference together.
Both of you guys, those are some very beautiful points. I appreciate that. And yeah, I cannot echo that more. Yeah, we need refugee leaders, not only as organizers, but executive directors, HRs, and in all spaces of influence to better advocate for our communities. So like Myra said, you don't need to have a Harvard degree or background, but instead have your story. And I think that's even more powerful. So yeah, by having representation of people that look like us, we will have folks that are able to better advocate for us. And I appreciate you both for those. And, this was a very exciting panel. I don't know what else to tell you guys, but I think these two both belong in the White House some way, somehow soon. And if they're not, follow both of them because there are some powerhouses. Yeah. So yeah, please, take Naz and Myra's advice and continue spotlighting AAPI refugees, not only in this month, but all the time. Please be more intentional in your work and as advocates. And for the rising AAPI refugee leaders, these two have paved the way, and we need you to join their movement. Follow these two powerhouses, and I cannot thank you both enough. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. And remember, guys, we will be hosting these series every Wednesday night around the same time at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Our next one is on May 26th, where we'll be able to spotlight asylum and asylum seekers. And again, the goals are, again, to uplift the work of refugees and asylee leaders, identify and engage more refugee leaders in our advocacy for refugees and asylees, and offer concrete opportunities and resources to get involved at local and national level. So you both, thank you very much. And for our viewers, thank you very much for viewing us. And please share, and happy Refugee Day on June 20th. Thank you very much.